Data types in Python. Hello everyone. In today's video, we're going to be learning a bit about the data types in Python. Translating data types, we get types of data, which means exactly how it sounds. There are really lots of different types of data or stuff we type in while coding in Python. For example, numbers, words, decimal numbers, and so on. But in a programming language, there are going to be way more fancy names. So let's start with integer, the most basic type of data type. Well, if you've listened to your maths teacher well enough, integers mathematically are the combination of negative and positive numbers, and so it is in Python. Int represents integers in Python. Next up is string, which represents the words or sentences you type in. An example is hello or how are you? str stands for string. Now let's go for float, which represents the decimal values like 12.4, 3.627, or even 10.0, which counts because it has a decimal. There isn't really a short form for this, so you just type float. Now, last but not the least, comes the Boolean value, which isn't really much except for true and false. And remember that Python is very case sensitive, so spell out true and false with a capital at the beginning. Now, just for your information, most values come out true, except for the following. So now let's move on to Pycharm to test out these data types. So I'm on Python console, and this right here is in Pycharm. Now, if I wanted to find out the data type of 5, I would get something looking like this. Now, this basically tells us that 5 is an integer. Now, if I wanted to find out the data type of 5.0, I would get class as float. Now, this is basically because of this decimal point right here. Now, why don't we go ahead with a word like hello, right? We get an error. Now, this error basically reminds us that we forgot the quotation marks in hello. Now, we'll go with double quotes, hello, and we get the class as string. Now, what about the Boolean values? We want to find out the type of, let's say, true, without the quotation marks in mind. So we get the class as bool. The same thing with false with a capital F, that's completely fine. But now another cool thing about the bool function is that if you write a true statement like something true, this can't be 10 is greater than 3. I don't think that can be any less true. So when I click on enter, I get the Boolean statement true. Now let's go a bit false, like 10 is smaller than 3. Now if I enter that, I get the Boolean value is false. How cool can that be? Now, another amazing thing about this is that you can change an integer into a float. For example, if you wanted to change 5 into a float, you would type float, and then in parentheses you type in 5, and then when you click on enter, you get 5.0, and if you notice, they've turned 5 into 5.0, which is a float. Now, what about a float to an integer? Like, turn 2.7 into an integer, and now we get 2. It doesn't really round off, which is pretty surprising, but we still get the first value over here, that is true. And another thing, what if we could change a string into an integer? So int, and let's take a string, not forgetting the quotes. Let's go with hello again. So we want to change hello into an integer. Now, as you see here, we get an error. Now, this tells us that we can't really change a string into an integer, but we can change an integer to a string. You can see how right here. So 7 into a string will give us 7. But if you see here, we have single quotes, which tells us this is a string just by its single quote. So I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to click on the notification bell for further updates. You can also let us know what you want to learn next in the comments down below.